Keep reading. This is a weekly STEP meeting. Our format is as follows. The speaker is asked, our seventh tradition states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. We will now pass the basket. This is a weekly STEP meeting. Our format is as follows. The speaker is asked to talk for 25 to 30 minutes on the STEP of that week, followed by discussion or questions until 7 p.m. You can find these weekly meetings on our YouTube page, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and share. That brings us to the speaker portion of the meeting on this day of January 13th, 2025 in Doylestown, PA, at the Monday night 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Step Group at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Chucky, and he will be sharing the experience on Step 12. Please help me welcome Chucky.
I'm at a call named Chucky.
Hey, Chucky.
I didn't know it was on step 12.
You asked me last week.
But
speak on whatever step you want to speak on.
Okay. Let me start by this. God, I offer myself to Thee to build with me and to do with me as Thy will. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help over Thy power, Thy love, Thy way of life, and may I do Thy will always. All right, step 12, as a result of the other steps, I had a spiritual awakening and carried the message. I will give a little background information to how I came to the conclusion of my purpose to carry the message. I was raised, I went to an Irish Catholic school, and that was the first introduction to me of a God, and it was a God of my mother's understanding. And I embraced, that faith seriously. Turn my phone off. And I embraced the faith seriously. I lived in the hood, and I went to an Irish Catholic school. So when I would walk home from school, the corner guys would say, "Here comes the Pope." They, I liked it when they said that because I took my faith seriously. And the ladies in my neighborhood, the older ladies, they would say, "Chucky, Chucky," call me over there, and I would pray for them. And they would give me a quarter after I said a little prayer, and that actually was my first hustle. And then on Palm Sundays, I would bring palms to them. They would give me 50 cents. So I started to become a non-believer in the faith because I started to question things. I became the person that in order for me to believe, I have to see. And I couldn't, they say a man walk on water, I just couldn't see that. And the man wasn't alive for me to see it, so I started to, shy away from my faith. And there was some other questions that I had. But even though I shied away from my faith, there were like chains of events that happened, and it was a sign that my higher power was there with me. And to fast forward a little, when I went into the rehab, they had introduced me to the solution, the 12 steps. And they said that I would have to be willing. That's the only thing that I needed. And as they started to tell me about the steps, I just thought it was, just foolishness. And they said to me that I got two choices. They said, this is not a prison. You could walk out here if you want. You could either be a little more cooperative and try to take these suggestions that we give you, or you could leave, and we'll give you a day to think about it. And my roommate at the time, I was telling him what they said to me. He was like, just make a little effort, unless you want to go. And I really didn't want to leave. And the next day, I told them that, I would make an effort. And I still gave resistance to the steps. And when I left the graduation for rehab, they had everybody up there and they gave everybody compliments, and they said to me that they earned their money and I was most likely to relapse. And I thought, that's an arrogant thing to say. I'm going to get 20 years sobriety and celebrate with some champagne. And that weekend, I did relapse. And as I started to mature in the fellowship, I understood that when I made that reservation in my mind about celebrating with champagne, that's a mental relapse. And that weekend I went on a binge, and then I came in the rooms on that Monday, and I shared that I went on a binge. And the group that I would attend, they welcomed me back open arms. And I was a meeting maker. I went to meetings every day, and I also hung in bars every day and drank during the nighttime. So I was in conflict with myself. The third tradition say if you have a desire to stop drinking, that's the only requirement for a membership. I had a desire to stop drinking, but I also had a desire to drink. So I was constant conflict, and I just made meetings, and I made the bar. I had a AA home group, and I had a home group for a bar. And eventually, I started to lean more toward AA. And I don't know my exact, the day of that I actually stopped drinking, because it was such a constant battle. But I do know that year is 1990, and I started to embrace AA. I got involved with the fellowship, and I stayed sober a lot of years, just from fellowshipping. And in AA, they taught me it's two parts to AA. It's the fellowship part, and then there's the program of action part. I roamed around AA without doing any action for a long period of time. And in the big book it says, fellowship alone can't keep me sober. And if you come around AA long enough, you'll start to hear certain things. And I knew that fellowship alone wouldn't keep me sober, but at the time period, it did keep me sober. You tell me what's going on with you, I tell you what's going on with me. All the aspects of fellowshipping I did. No action, no program of action. I guess around 13 years sobriety I had, and a guy had said that he wanted me to be a sponsor. And I said to him, I'll be your sponsor, but you would have to do the steps according to the big book. He said, okay. He had no problem with that. And mind you, I didn't even do the steps according to the big book. So That's when Joe and Charlie tapes was popular back then. So with the first step, I went home, I listened to Joe and Charlie's tape for step one, and then when I met this guy, I would talk to him about step one as if I read it. And he had he was involved in prison commitments, intergroup, um, recovery houses. He was going to carry the message. Rehabs. He was going to carry the message. He was heavy into AA. And instead of him following me around, I followed him around. And what I learned from that experience was he was attracted to the quantity, the amount of time that I had, and I was attracted to the quality. He had quality sobriety. Even though I had a lot of time, I didn't have any quality sobriety. And that inspired me to put the program into action. And I started to do the steps according to the big book. And they talk about being at a turning point. And turning point meaning a change is about to come. And that was my turning point. And I'm grateful for AA for allowing me to mature at the pace that I matured. I was what you call a slow learner in AA. I went to a lot of step meetings, big book meetings, but it was all over my head. You know, I really didn't understand anything, but I know when I walked through the doors, I was in a safe place, and that was one of the attractions for me, that I felt safe. And even though I went to a lot of step meetings, big book meetings, and I wasn't understanding anything, as I started to mature 13 years later, you know, I would always say that if there was a short yellow bus for AA, I would be on that bus. Um, and I really do mean that. That's how long it took me to actually put this program into action. And once I did do the steps according to the big book, um, as a result of the remaining other 11 steps, as the 12 steps said, that I felt inspired that I should carry the message. And I had an awakening. I had other spiritual awakenings, but I never had a spiritual awakening as a direct result of the steps. I had little spiritual awakenings, little spiritual experiences. You know, I went to a meeting in a hospital, the sick and shut in. The guy took me to a meeting, and the guy was about to pass away. He had 3 days to live. He's supposed to be like a famous football player. And he said that when he died, he wants to die the AA way of life. And I didn't understand what he meant then. You know, I was like, what do you mean, the AA way of life? And he looked it so strong. I was like, this guy's going to live forever. You know, he was standing up telling his story, but he had tubes all in him, and it was a water bag. He died 3 days later, but at that meeting, he told me I was the most important person because I was a newcomer. And we all, shared. It was a small group of people. We all shared the same thing, that we felt something, but we didn't know what it was. And now that I matured in AA, that feeling was the presence of God. And it took me a lot of years to embrace the God factor. I was one of the ones in AA where I didn't want to hear that God talk. Anytime I went through something in life, when I was in recovery, I would say, I got AA. I would never say God. And, they say you rely on the group as your higher power. I never really looked at it as my higher power, but unconsciously I did rely on the fellowship as my higher power. And as I matured, I realized that, I do have a higher power. The same God that I was introduced to as a little boy is the same God that I believe in today, minus some things. I have a better understanding of that God through this fellowship, you know, and thanks for letting me share.
Please keep your shares related to the step. If you feel like drinking or if you've had a drink today, please see me or speak to someone after the meeting. We ask that you please refrain from the use of profanity. We are in a church and on a spiritual journey. Meeting's yours.